Alright, let's make a desktop organizer. So you're probably going to end up making either something that looks like this or something that we're probably about to design. So this is just a very simple desktop organizer. It has a place for pencils, and tools, USB, micro USBs, maybe a place for paper clips, little drawers. It's got a have your name on it. Something else for pins over here. But we're gonna do another one, and we're gonna walk through how you get it from beginning to end. So we're gonna create a new design. Okay. And in Fusion 360, you're going to need to create sketches on planes. So you're going to create a sketch, and you need to pick a plane. It doesn't matter what plane you pick, okay? As long as you pick one, because that's what you're going to sketch on. So let's pick the red blue one here. So I'm going to create a rectangle, and I'm going to create a center rectangle. So I'm going to move over, and I'm going to create a rectangle, and I'm going to make this rectangle 175 by 150. Okay, and so you can click on the little text numbers in here and change it, or you can also go by tabs, and when I hit the tabs, notice it goes between my numbers. And when you get it the size that you want, you can click finish sketch and you're good to go. So here I've got a rough size for my organizer, and I can hit the E on the keyboard, or I can hit press pull, or I can hit extrude under solid. So if I hit extrude, I can extrude this into 3 dimensions, and I'm going to make my distance here 5, and it's going to extrude it up as 5 millimeters, and I've got a solid body. All right, so that's going to be the base for my organizer. But now I want to make something like a cell phone holder, right? And there's lots of different ways to do this, and we're going to do one way, but there's a bazillion ways to do it. I like making a cell phone holder because it kind of shows you how you kind of need to think in Fusion 360. It's more of sketching and extruding as opposed to thinking three-dimensional and placing objects in 3D. Okay. So if you ever get lost, you can click on this little home button. It'll take you home. But what I'm going to do is we're going to create a sketch again. Okay. And this time my sketch is going to be in the vertical plane perpendicular to my base, because I'm going to want to have my cell phone holder setting on my base. So I'm going to click that one. Okay. And if you don't want to have this get in your way, you can go over to your little browser menu over here and you can hide it. Right, and it's still there, it's just hidden from your view. So sometimes that can be useful when you're involved in sketches. Oops. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to try to take a rough sketch at my cell phone holder. So I'm going to go into line here. Okay, I am going to hide my base here. Because I'm going to find it probably a little bit easier to sketch it from the origin, and then I can move it around as I see fit, since I'm going to 3D print this. Okay, so I'm going to start here at my origin, and I'm going to make my original base out here to be 70. Okay, and then I am going to move up, and I'm going to have it come up here at an angle at, let's say, highlight it here with the move back and forth with the tab key at 66 degrees. Okay, and I'm going to have it come up, let's say up 50. Okay, and then I'm going to click again. Okay, and then I'm going to have another line come down here. Okay, and I'm going to want that to be 90 degrees relative to my angle. And so notice where I put 90 degrees right there, right? And you get a little right angle up there. Okay, I think that's gonna work. All right, and yeah, let's make this 80. Okay, boom. All right, let's lock that one into place. All right, and now I'm gonna have another line come up, and this is what my cell phone's gonna rest on. Actually, let me measure the thickness of my phone that direction. My phone is 14 with the base that way, so let's make this, yeah, 12 should be sufficient. All right, so I'm gonna click that, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so now I've got this sketch right here. Okay, now I've got a sketch, but I can't extrude this sketch because it's just a bunch of lines. But what I can do is I can click on these and hold down the shift key as I click on them, and they all get highlighted. Okay, now if I go up to my sketch menu up here at the top, I've got this thing called offset. So I can click that, and I can change an offset. And what it's going to do is it's going to draw the exact same thing I just did, except offset at an angle. Okay, and I'm going to offset it by, let's say, 4. Okay, all right, and you can flip it. All right, I think I like it flipped better. All right, so I'm going to click OK. Okay, now notice I've got a little gap right here and a little gap right here. So I am going to go and I am going to create new lines here, and I am going to connect those guys together. Okay, that one's a little harder to see, so let me maybe do that one from the top to the bottom. All right, there we go. So I just drew 2 lines connecting the 2 points together. All right, because I had to fill that in and fill that in. Notice once I've got it, it's shaded in now. So I'm going to finish my sketch. Okay, so I've got something that is nicely shaded in. And now what I can do is I am going to extrude this. And if I go back over to my bottom body, all right, I can see where it's going to get placed. And this extrusion I'm going to have as a new body. Okay. All right. And yeah, so I think that might be okay for right now. So let's click. I've got it 60 millimeters. Let me see how actual wide my phone is. My phone is 77, so let's make this number, since that's in a negative direction, I'm going to make it minus 80, let's say. Okay, so that should have my phone easily rest on that. Okay, so here we go. So that seems pretty good. All right. Now, since I hid my little base, right, I was sketching down on the origin. So what I can do is I can click on my little move icon here, and you have to make sure that when you do move, a new window pops up again. You can do bodies, and you can click, and then you can move it up. All right, because I think I might want to have that. But again, you can move it down just a little bit if you want to have that embedded in your base. You don't have to, it's completely up to you. 3D printing, this will just get blended into the base. So if you don't want it, there might be a reason here why we might want it. But again, if you move it down, right, and you leave it like that, you're totally good. As long as it's not sticking out the bottom, and it does not look like it is. Okay, so we're not quite done yet because there's a few things that are missing here, right? Is we need some place for the chords to go. And I also think I want to do something else right here. And this is going to show us another little useful tool. Okay. So sometimes 3D printing, you can sometimes have these little joints break. So I think I'm going to put a couple of little supports in here just to make sure that it doesn't. So I am going to create a new sketch, and I'm going to use this big base as my home. Okay, and I'm going to think I'm going to have a support here and maybe another support here, and I'm going to make them as 2-point rectangles. So I think I might have a support that goes from here to here, and then I think I might have another rough support that will go from here to here, let's say. Okay. And we could make them exactly the same size if we wanted to. Okay. Because then we can just copy and paste them, but this will work fine for this. So now what I want to do is I'm going to extrude this guy, but this time I wanted to extrude it where it hits the bottom of this base. So over here I've got it selected already with the profile. I'm going to extrude it in 1 dimension. The extent type is to an object, and my object is the bottom of my cell phone holder. And I'm going to say join because I want them to merge together. Boom. Alright. So that seems pretty good. Oh, whoops, I didn't have my other one selected. So let me Control Z that. I needed to have both of them selected. So let me go hit the E button again. I want to select that one and that one. I needed them both selected because it only have one selected. So now both are selected. Distance to my plane. I don't want it to be a cut. I'm going to have it join, and boom, okay. Oh, interesting that it didn't join all the way up. Okay. So there is a... I might have to do one more little thing to fix that, but that's easy. Alright. So now let's make another hole here for my cell phone charger. So I'm going to create a new sketch. It's going to be on my base right there. And this time I'm going to do another 2-point rectangle. Because this time I'm just going to cut a rectangle out of my little base right there. Okay, let's go here, and yeah, let's go there. That should be more than sufficient. I'm going to finish my sketch. Alright, now let's extrude this guy. We're going to extrude him the opposite direction, just enough so he cuts through. Perfect. Right, I'm basically cutting a hole there. Bingo. Alright, let's go home. Boom. Alright, now let's do the same thing to the back. I'm going to do a create sketch. Let's do a 2-point rectangle again. This is so I can squeeze through my USB, finish my sketch. I'm going to extrude it. I am going to cut through. Yep, he is cut all the way through. I'll click OK. Boom, there we go. Alright, now I don't like these blocks, and now every now and then Fusion 360 will do that funny thing where even though we told it to extrude, what is kind of nice is down here is it's got all the memories of everything that we have ever done. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in time, and this one right here I think is my extrusion for my for my distance. So what I'm going to do this time, instead of having to extrude to the bottom of that object, it looks like it seems like it has selected the distance for some reason. So two objects selected. It looks like it didn't have selected the object right. So now let's click join. Now let's see if that did it better. Oh yeah, now it's better. Perfect. That's always useful to know that you have this little toolbar down here that allows you to go back in time and edit anything that you have done. And now that looks much prettier. Okay, because that's what it should have done before. I might have missed a little checkbox over here to edit to the distance. Alright, so I don't like this little sharp corner right here. I think I'll hit my hand on it, it will hurt. But you can add rounded edges, so I'm going to put a little chamfer on this, or a fillet. I'm going to put a little 2mm fillet on it. That's just going to round that guy out. I'm going to do the same thing with these surfaces, faces right here. I'm going to put little fillets on those guys. Let's see what a 2.0 looks like there. See if that just looks goofy. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. Okay, so we'll go with that for right now. Okay. And I might end up coming and making that rounded in there too, just so I don't hit my fingertips on something that might be sharp. Alright, so now I've got a place for my cell phone. Okay. Alright, now let's add a place for the cell phone to actually come out, because there isn't a really good spot right now for the cell phone to come out. I'm not sure there's enough space right there, so I think I want to add one more little hole, and I think I might want to put it right here. So I'm going to do another create. I'm going to do a create sketch, and I'm going to select the surface of where my cell phone is going to be resting. I'm going to create another 2-point rectangle, and this time I'm just going to create another little kind of resting area here for my guy, and I think that's going to be my rectangle. So let's finish that sketch. Perfect. And I think we will just extrude him in the same thing. We'll just do a cut. Boom. So that should do it, I would think, here. So now I should be able to send my cell phone cable through here, and it should be able to charge. Perfect. Alright, so now I've got my cell phone charger, I think, pretty set. Alright. Now, next up, let's put a place for me to put my pencils or something or other. So, same idea. I'm going to create a sketch. Actually, let me reorient this here. Home. Alright, I'm going to have my pencils in this back corner back here. Alright, so I'm going to create a sketch. I'm going to have this base as my frame, or my plane that I'm going to sketch on, so I'm going to click that. Okay. So it oriented backwards here for me, but here's where I want it to be. Alright, So I'm going to create a circle, and this time I'm going to create probably, yeah, let's do a center diameter circle. So I think my center will be here. You could do a 2-point circle. Let's go with 60. Okay, because I tend to throw things like pliers and stuff in this. Okay. Yeah, that's probably where I want it. And you can move this around. All right, so maybe let's put it a little bit more toward the back here. Okay. All right, so I can finish my sketch. All right, but now I can do the same thing here. I'm going to extrude this. Most pencils are roughly, I'm going to measure one here. The pen that I have here is 150. That's pretty average for most pens. So you probably want this to be at least 80 when you extrude it. So let's say 85. Okay, I'm going to treat this as a new body because I might want to move this later, but we'll see. Okay. Now let's hollow it out. So we are going to use the shell tool, which is up here in the top. I'm going to click the top circle, and you get a new little shell tool that pops up. I'm going to change this to say, let's say 2.5 or 2.5 millimeters, and that's going to be the thickness of your little holder. Right, it's kind of cool. All right, so now you've got a little holder. Okay, which is looking pretty good. All right. Now, let's say that you want it someplace to store, say, your USBs or something like that, right? So let's make a block. And we're going to store our USBs. So, same idea. We're going to go to Create. We're going to create Sketch. I'm going to have my sketch again. My plane that I'm going to draw on is going to be my surface of my base. And this time I'm going to do a 2-point rectangle. So let's say my rectangle is going to go from here down to here. Okay, I'm going to finish that sketch. All right. And now I'm going to extrude this guy up. And let's say I'm going to extrude him. I'm actually going to make this guy reasonably tall for right now. I'm going to make him 50. Okay. And I'm going to make him a new body instead of join. Otherwise, he becomes, if I do join, the block becomes part of the base. Okay. Okay. Boom. And here's why I wanted to make him tall. Because I'm going to kind of slice him at an angle. And I think 50 might have been enough. So now, because I want to have it where I can easily just grab my USBs at a little bit of an angle. So I am going to create a construction plane because I want to sketch stuff at an angle. So I'm going to create a construction plane, and I'm going to make a plane at an angle. Okay. So my plane at an angle is going to rotate around this red axis right here. Alright, so notice my plane is rotating, and I'm going to have my plane be rotating at a minus 45 degrees. Okay, and I'm going to click OK. So now I've got this plane. Okay, so I am now going to create a sketch on this 45-degree plane right there. Okay. And my sketch on this 45-degree plane is basically just going to be a big rectangle. Okay. I think I want it to be bigger than that. So I want to edit this. I want to move this guy out. Okay. Maybe it'd be easier to just hide this sketch and restart that sketch. Okay. So let's cancel and let's just finish that sketch. Okay. So now I'm going to delete that sketch. Okay. Hide you. Okay. So, alright. Perfect. Now he's gone. Alright, let's try that again. So I am going to sketch on this 45-degree plane. So create sketch. That is my plane I am going to sketch on right there. And I'm going to want to create a sketch. And I'm going to want to create a center rectangle. Okay. And my center rectangle I want in the middle of this block. And I want to draw it at least as big as my block. And then I'm going to click finish. Okay, because here's what I want to do with this plane is I'm going to extrude it. I'm going to extrude it downward. Okay, and what I'm wanting to do with this is I'm kind of just wanting to make like a 45-degree interface on this block, such that way my USBs will face downward. And once I'm happy with what I've got, I'm going to click OK. Alright, so now I've got my 45-degree block. Okay, I also could have done this by going in and making a sketch like this and then extruding it that direction. Alright, so I've now got my 45-degree angle slice. So let's put some USB holders in it. So I'm going to do a 2-point rectangle. So I'm going to put my first one, let's say, starting right there for my first corner. And most USBs, particularly USB-A's, are about 4.5 millimeters. So I'm going to make this guy 5 just to make sure he's going to fit. And his height, most of the ones that I am currently measuring here are 12. So let's make it say 12.3. Make sure he's a little snug so that he'll fit. And I'll finish my sketch. And there it is, right there. And now let's extrude this guy down. And we don't want it to be too deep. And so we're going to make it about 9. So in my extrusion, I am going to say -9. So I've got it highlighted. It's going down about 9. And it's a cut. Perfect. And this is why we also had it as a plane, because then it's going to put it perfectly right perpendicular to the plane. And let's say I want multiple of these guys. I'm going to apply a pattern. So I'm going to do a rectangular pattern in this case. And notice again another little window pops up, features. I'm going to select the little hole that I just made, the axes, and I'm going to want to go in the direction of the red axes here, and let's put 4 of them. Okay, and notice as I drag my arrow, it equally spaces them. Okay, and you can change that by the extent. right, by making sure that they do say stay in space based upon how far they go, right? But I want to go to the extent and then make sure that I'm going to have it right there to the edge. Yep, and we'll click OK. There we go. All right. So I've got my 4 USBs up here. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing with my micro USBs. Okay. So a micro USB is about 10 millimeters in height. So same idea. I'm going to click and I'm going to have my create sketch on that plane. Same idea. I am going to create my little sketch here. This guy is going to be micro USB or micro SD card is 0.76 millimeters. I'm going to make this guy 1 millimeter. Just because that's about as detailed as I think most printers will be able to handle. And I'm going to have it 11 millimeters long to make sure that it fits. Okay, because you don't want to have those guys stuck. I'm going to finish it out. Perfect. And now it's exactly the same process. I'm going to extrude this. I've got it clicked on, distance. Little SD cards have a little kink in it so that they can only go in one way. That kink is about 5 millimeters up, so let's say we're going to do a 4.5 millimeters deep. And it's going to be a cut. Oh, I gotta make it inward, minus 4.5. So that gave me an error down here. Alright, click it. Alright, and now same idea as the previous one. I'm going to create a pattern, a rectangular pattern. And objects, select my hole I just made. My axis will be my red axis again. And let's say I'm picking 5 of them. Let's see how that works. Oops. Oh, let's do that again. I'm going to create a pattern, rectangular pattern. Features, yep. Object, the hole for my SD card, check. My axis is my red axis. I'm going to try to do, maybe 6 might work. So let's look how that works. Yeah, 6 is very good there. Maybe a little bit. There we go. Perfect. All right. So now I've got my USBs. I've got my micro USBs. So I could do something else on the bottom here that I want to. USB-Cs. You know, something like that if I wanted to. If I had like little USB holders. So a USB-C is 2.5 thick by 8.3 it looks like. Okay. So if I had maybe a USB cable or something that I wanted to put in, so we could do exactly the same process there. Okay. Okay. So let's go to create sketch. Make sure we select the right plane. Got it. Okay. So I'm going to do a USB-C here. It is, let's say, 2.6 across. And I said it was about 8.4. So let's do 8.8. Or let's do 9 to make sure it's going to fit, not 89. just 9. Alright, and we'll hit enter, and we will hit finish sketch. And there's my USB-C. Okay, perfect. I think yeah, I'll leave it there. I won't move it over. Alright, so now let's extrude that. Let's see how far the typical USB goes in. Looks like, let's say 3. So -3. It's a cut. Perfect. Alright. And now let's create the pattern again. Pattern. Rectangular pattern. Features. I will select. Got it. Axes. My little red axes. Probably 4, because these might be USB, so they might be thicker, just like our USB-As. Alright, perfectly, and they're kind of in between my micro USBs, so that should be easy to reach. And there we have it. So I've got my USB-As, micro USBs, and USB-Cs. So I got places to store everything. Okay. Now, the last thing that we might want to do is just to cut short some of our 3D printing that we might want. Is sometimes you might not want to have this as a solid, so we're going to actually shortcut that a little bit, and I'm going to show you that in the next little section. Alright, so now let's convert this guy into some kind of like a mesh, like those mesh trash cans. That's so we also don't have to print so much material. So we're going to make him a honeycomb. So I'm going to go up to create, and I am going to create a sketch. And we're going to put it onto this vertical plane here, which is that red-green one. So we're going to click that, and let me move down so we can see it. And I'm going to create circumscribed polygons. So let's put the first one here, and I'm going to make him 4. Okay, and I'm going to make another polygon a little bit down. Oops, it didn't take that one, so let me redo that one. Polygon, circumscribed polygon, and we're still in the same sketch because I haven't clicked finish sketch yet. And let's make this one also 4. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to move him just a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, let's go with that. That's probably far enough apart. Okay, so alright, so I've got my 2 polygons here, and what I want to do is we're going to make these guys into holes. So I think I'm okay. You can adjust them how you want them. And I think I'm going to want them where they make a prettier pattern. So I'm going to hide my cylinder so you can see them. And I'm going to have that line and that line where they're going to constantly be parallel. So do you see up here where you've got these kind of reddish and blackish and gray? They're under the constraints. So I can always make sure that those 2 lines right there will always be parallel to each other, no matter what. So what that's going to do is that's going to make the mesh just look better, right, geometrically, because our eyes are drawn to things that are symmetrical. All right, and so now that constraint is applied, and that's what these little icons are that pops up. You can make like these 2 guys up here, they could be parallel. You could always make sure that they're horizontal to each other or perpendicular to each other. right, by picking this guy, right, or having vertical to each other, you name it, right? There's lots of different different constraints. So we're going to use parallel. So you can play with them and test them out and see what they do. But I'm going to finish this sketch. Okay, and now I'm going to bring back up my body. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I want to extrude these guys. So we're going to click on each one of these. Okay. And I want to make sure that I click on both of them. All right, and we're going to extrude them all the way through. Okay, and they should extrude all the way through my object. Okay. All right. I'm actually just going to have them extrude through one side. I want them to extrude through the other side. And we'll see here why in a second. We could move these guys if I wanted to. But let's leave it as is. So let's click OK. Alright, so now I've got these two holes. Alright. And so what am I going to do with these guys? I'm going to take these holes and I'm going to wrap them all the way around my pencil holder. All right, we're going to do the same thing by creating a pattern. We first have to create a vertical pattern, and then we're going to wrap them around it. So let's go here to create pattern, and I'm going to create a rectangular pattern. All right, so I'm going to go to features. I'm going to select, and this is where it's also sometimes useful to get rid of things so that you don't click on them. So I'm going to create my objects. So the hard part is sometimes just selecting the objects that you're going to select. So I've got my hole selected. Now my axes that I want to select, this time is going to be my vertical one up and down. So that's going to be my green axes. And I can select again how many I want. Let's say 5. And I'm going to rotate around here to see how this might look. Okay. So let's move this down. Okay. How does that look? Is 6 too many? Oh, 6 might not be too many. Let's maybe go down just a little more. Is it going in? Yeah, it's going under there. Alright, so let's go up. Let's go down maybe to minus 66. Millimeters, not meters. Okay, yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So I am going to click OK. So now I've got my holes going all the way down to the bottom. Alright, now it looks like I cut into the bottom of my little bin there. So I'm going to undo that and I'm going to redo this thing again. So I'm going to go with 64 this time. So I'm going to go pattern, rectangular pattern, features, select my the trick is you only want your hole selected. There we go. Oh no, I think I selected the inside of that. Okay, so let's close that again. I want to select just my holes. Perfect, there we got them. And my axis again, I want to select my green axis. Alright, and this time I'm going to select 6. And let's go with minus 62. Alright, I'm going to hide my cell phone. And yeah, alright, let's see how that looks. Okay, and now this time it doesn't look like I cut into the bottom. Alright, so now we're pretty good. Now what we have to do is, now I've got these features, right, instead of just these two. So now I'm going to go back to create. I'm going to create a pattern. I can create another rectangular pattern, right? Or I can create a circular pattern, and we're going to look at the difference here. So I've got my features that I want to select. And I'm going to spin up here because it's a little easier to select them. There's that batch. Alright, so now I've got all my holes selected. Now my axes this time is going to be, for my circular pattern, my cylinder. Okay? If I selected my rectangular pattern, it would spread them out and it would cut through them like a regular pattern. We'll see the difference here. Okay? And my axis is selected. And now I can drag this around. Okay? And let's see how it's looking. Oh, somehow I got 3 selected. Let's try this again. Create pattern. Create pattern, circular pattern. Alright, I'm going to create my features. I want to select my holes I have made. I've got that batch of holes, and I've got that batch of holes. So I should have 2 features selected. My axis is going to be my cylinder. Alright, so now as I crank up my holes here, right, I'm getting what my cylinder will look like with all the holes. And this is where you might have to do a undo and redo to see if you like it. So let's OK this and see what it looks like. Okay. Kind of cool. So if I had done a rectangular one, it would have extended it out as like a wall and then put the holes through it. So sometimes you can get cool effects on the sides that looks like you kind of did notches on the sides, which can be kind of nifty. Okay. Boom. So now I've got my little mesh with the holes in it. I've got my USB. I've got my cylinder. All right. So I'm going to go back and let's show you what the rectangular way would have looked like. Okay. So we're going to create a pattern, rectangular pattern. Okay. So let's go in. I'm going to select my holes. For my objects, just get those guys selected. And got it. Okay, my axes, because I need to draw them down the first time. So got that. And let's go with 6. And we figured that minus 62 was good. All right, we'll do OK. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do a create pattern. We're going to do a rectangular pattern. Okay, we're going to do features. All right, we're going to do selection. And it seems like that maybe selecting it from the inside is the best selection here. Man, I'm having a hard time selecting them, aren't I? Alright, let's see if I can find a different way of getting them. Alright, there I got them. Alright, and now my axes. This time, since it's not circular, I have to pick one of my axes to go about. And so I am going to go about this blue one. And so that's going to pull them side to side. Now this time, I'm going to go symmetric. Okay. In my axis 1. And that's going to be my blue axis. So let's go with 4 and let's see how this works. So see them going apart? Okay. And now if I click OK, right, you just get different types of patterns, right? So you can figure out, what it is that you might want. All right, I kind of like the full round mesh, but you can decide. All right, so I'm gonna go back in time and go back to my little mesh. So let me redo up here. Boom, 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 bump. And then I'm going to put these guys back on as my mesh. And that's what we will do. And we'll finish up here right after I get my mesh done. Alright, so last couple of things here is, let's say we want it to do a little embossing. So I'm going to emboss on the phone case here. So let's click on that. That's going to be our plane we're going to engrave on. So let's create sketch. All right. And once you create sketch, you get some text. You can draw your text box just like you would in like Microsoft Word or whatever. That's going to be the size of my text. And then you get a little window that pops up for your text, and you can sample it. And you can pick lots of different font sizes. I'm just going to do Arial now because it's simple. And so my phone holder, let's center that. All right, I can click OK here. All right, now this is just a sketch. So again, Fusion 360 doesn't really know a lot about sketches yet. All right. And we can emboss that. So I can go create, and I am going to emboss it. So you get another little window that pops up. I'm going to sketch my profile, pick it. So I'm going to have to select my profile. That's where I click on the sketch. The face you want to emboss on, that's going to be my phone holder. And you can emboss or deboss. And since it's a phone holder, I'm going to deboss on it. So that means it's engraved into the phone holder. So there we go. I have my phone holder that is embossed. You can put your name there or whatever it is that you might want to, right, for things like that. All right. Which is pretty cool. Now, inserting images is kind of a pain in the Fusion 360, so we're not going to have you guys do that. You can, but it's a difficult thing to do. So you could put something here if you wanted to. But this is a pretty basic little desktop organizer. Right, if you wanted to kind of pretty it up a little bit, you can go up here and you can put some chamfers on things. Let's go here from the top. I'm going to try to highlight the main face there. I'm going to try to put some pretty good fillet on that one. And this is so get a little curve on that. Let's see, where else might I want a curve? I may have that as a little curve. Adding in curves does make the 3D printing a little more challenging. if you don't have a very good printer. It does make it look cooler, right? You don't want to put the curves on the bottom because that can interfere with the quality of the print. But having the curves on the top, like on this edge and these edges on the corners, right? And you can select multiple edges by holding down the Shift key. Are very printable. Don't put it on the bottom because that's going to cause some chaos when you print. Okay. Now, there's going to be some weaknesses here with this print. Okay. And we're going to see that here when we print it. Alright. But yeah, I think we're pretty good. I think that I might add a curve here and maybe another curve here. Just to make it less owie in terms of me. Oh, I missed that one. Okay, so let me just do that. I'm putting these as 2 millimeters. So this is kind of like the fine tuning at the end. All right. Okay. Oh yeah, I do kind of think that I like having this guy right here. Let me rotate that around. Yeah, I'm gonna... Yeah, it's kind of hard to click on it. Let's go back home. Alright, let's rotate again. I'm going to try to draw a box around it this time. So I want to zoom in to this area right there. Okay, let's try this again. Zoom in there. Okay, let's see if I can click on that now. See if I can rotate in. I want to click on that whole face right there. Yep. And see if I can add a fillet to that whole face. I'm more worried about hitting the top than I am the bottom. Yeah, making that a little round. And same thing on this face. Yep. So then you can go through and then, oh, oops, I highlighted the whole shebang. There we go. Fillet, 2 millimeters. Yeah, so you can find, oh yeah, it's not gonna let me do that one, so that might be as best as we can do. Let me see if I can get this bottom face then and get it rounded. 2, yeah, perfect. Alright, that'll be perfect. Alright, so now I've got a pretty good design, I think. Alright, so now we've got our design, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring it into a printer and we're gonna try to print it. Alright, so what we have to do is we're going to print it. It's actually quite easy. Always make sure that you're saving this. So, pretty easy to save. And we're going to export this. So let's export. And in your drop down menu as type, you're going to make sure that you save it as an STL file. Stereolithographic file. That's for 3D printing. I'm gonna save this as my Buffy phone. Okay, it's gonna save to the folder, and you can pick a new folder if you want to. And let's export this. Okay, and I've been bringing up Bamboo Studio. Okay, I'm going to skip that download for right now. And so Bamboo Studio is going to be our software we're going to use. And in Bamboo, you're going to have yours won't quite look like this because yours will be newer. And once you've identified and installed the printers, you're going to click Prepare. And you will then go to the little file menu in the top left and go import, and you're going to import the file that you just exported, and it should be in your downloads folder. And there's My Buffy Phone. So let's click open. There it is. Alright, and what I want to do is I'm going to rotate it. So you can do all sorts of things up here with our menu. So we can rotate it, spin it, reorient it, do all sorts of things. You can auto orient it. That's always a useful thing to do. And that's going to try to place it in a way that's going to minimize supports. And that's that little button that says kind of small auto with the little arrow beside it. That's usually a smart thing to try to do. And it's reasonably smart. So if it comes in funny, just click that and it will put it in the right orientation. Where it says this PLA, that's the front of the printer. So I'm going to move it where I can see the front. Okay, so here it is. Okay, seems pretty reasonable. Alright, if it's too big, you can always take it and you can shrink it and you can enlarge it. And it will give you a warning if you make it too big. A red box pops up in the corner and something is terrible has gone wrong. Okay, and then over here on the left, you'll be able to make sure that you pick the right printer. Our printers are either Bamboo X1s or Bamboo A1s. Okay, X1 carbons, A1s. So I'm going to do an X1 here. You'll pick Bamboo PLA, or if you find another filament that you like, you'll have to find it in this list, but make sure that you pick it. Most of our filaments are PLA. Right? And then you don't have to worry much about any of these quality settings. The software is pretty good. The strength tab here you'll have to worry about. If you want something a little stronger, you can add a wall or two to it. That's the outside. That makes it a little stronger. Usually I bump the infill grid up to 20 for density. Grid is the default. Don't ever print with grid with a Bamboo printer. In fact, generally grid isn't the greatest. I like gyroid. It's a nice combination of speed and strength. And so you can switch that to gyroid. Now for this one, this has an interesting phenomenon. And that's why I designed the phone holder the way that I did here. Is, see right here, it's got air underneath of this. A printer may or may not be able to print that really well without supports. So you're going to have to enable supports. If you slice it, you'll get a warning down here. It says, hey, you might want to think about adding supports. Couple of things with supports. Never pick normal. Always change this to tree. I like having it on build plate only if possible. That way you're not picking supports off the model itself. The supports start on the plate and then they work their way around and figure out how to get onto the model to support it. They're also easier to take off. I just find that better solution. And that's it. And then you go up here and you hit the slice button, and it's going to go through and it's going to slice it. So there it says generating supports, so it probably needed it. Alright, it says slice OK, so that's all good. Alright, so mine says it needed supports for these. which is weird. I'm not sure that I would put supports there. But notice I've got supports here, and that's right. You would definitely need some supports there to go in. Usually that wouldn't need a support. So if you're, but you know, it's totally fine. It is that these should be pretty easy to take off. And this is going to take 6 hours and 49 minutes to print. And when you're done, what you'll do is go up here to this where it says print plate. You can't just click that because that will want to send it to a printer. All of our printers are not connected to the internet on purpose. You'll have to choose export plate sliced file, and then you will click the export plate sliced file, and then you will save it someplace on your laptop, and then you'll plug in a USB drive or a micro SD card, save it to that, and you'll take that to the printer, and then it will save it as a G-code file, and that's what it's going to use as the guide for the printer. So I'm just going to save this to my laptop. There, it saves it, and then you can kind of see here how it's going to print. So this little vertical line over here will walk you through the printing process, so you can actually see how it's going to print, which is kind of cool. That's it. That's going from 0 all the way through in Fusion 360 with kind of most of the tools. But the recommendation is think about starting with sketches and then extruding them outward, and you can actually do a fair bit. The trick is making sure that your sketch is fully closed. You can't extrude, you know, like 2 lines connected to each other, because it doesn't make a solid square, circle, oval, or something like that. Other than that, we're done.